Have you ever felt that stress is taking over your life, like an endless storm? Many people experience this sensation, especially during times of loss, grief, or major changes. Stress is a natural response of the body to situations of pressure or challenges, but when it is not managed, it can become an overwhelming burden. It affects not only our mind, but also our body, our relationships, and even our ability to find inner peace. Think for a moment. When was the last time you truly stopped to evaluate how stress is impacting your life? Perhaps you've noticed that you're more irritable over small things, or that constant headache won't go away, no matter how much you try to ignore it. These are clear signs that stress is present, even if you don't immediately recognize it. Stress doesn't come out of nowhere. It is often triggered by external factors such as work deadlines, financial problems, or personal conflicts. But it can also be caused by internal factors such as unrealistic expectations, fear of the future, or difficulty in dealing with difficult emotions. During grief, for example, stress can manifest even more intensely because we are facing one of the deepest and most transformative experiences of life. Now imagine that stress is like a flowing river. When we flow with it, we can use it as a driving force to propel us forward. But when we resist the current, we end up exhausted, fighting against something we cannot completely control. The key then is not to eliminate stress, something impossible in a world full of challenges, but to learn to navigate it in a healthy way. Today, we will explore what stress is, how it affects your body and mind, and what practical strategies you can apply to find balance and inner peace. We will also delve into lesser-known psychological concepts, such as psychological alchemy, to transform stress into resilience. This video was created to guide you on an inner journey, helping you recognize the signs of stress and offering accessible tools to face it in a healthy way. Stress does not have to be your enemy. It can be a signal that something in your life needs attention. Stress is an automatic response of the body to perceiving a threat or challenge. It can be positive, like acute stress that motivates us to act in the face of a work deadline, or negative, like chronic stress that accumulates when we face difficult situations without time for recovery. Imagine that your body is like a bow and arrow. Stress is the force you use to pull the string. If it's well measured, it propels the arrow forward. But if it's excessive, the bow can break. To better understand, think of a student who feels stress before an important exam. That stress can motivate them to study more and prepare adequately. However, if the level of stress is too high, it can block their reasoning, causing memory lapses or difficulty concentrating during the test. The same principle applies to daily life. When we are under constant pressure, our ability to respond effectively decreases. Another example is a woman who recently lost her job. She begins to feel constant muscle pain and difficulty sleeping. These physical symptoms don't appear out of nowhere. They are clear signs that stress is affecting her body. The financial uncertainty and worry about the future have created an emotional overload that manifests tangibly. She realizes that although the stress is understandable given the situation, it is starting to harm her health. In analytical psychology, the concept of psychological alchemy offers an interesting perspective on stress. Just as in ancient alchemy, where lead was transformed into gold, our heaviest and most challenging emotions can be transmuted into resilience and wisdom. In this sense, stress can be seen as an opportunity for personal growth as long as it is approached consciously and intentionally. Now think about this for a moment. What happens when you ignore the signs of stress instead of facing them? Listen with real attention. Ignoring stress can lead to serious physical and emotional consequences such as burnout, chronic anxiety, or even more serious health issues. Recognizing these signs is the first step to managing them in a healthy way. 2. Illustrate this. Imagine that stress is like a noisy neighbor who shows up unannounced. You can try to ignore them, but they won't go away on their own. Instead, they will keep knocking on your door until you face them. Similarly, stress demands attention and care to be dissipated constructively. Stress doesn't just affect your mind, it also has a direct impact on the body. Headaches, insomnia, palpitations, and fatigue are some of the most common physical symptoms. Emotionally, stress can lead to irritability, anxiety, and even depression. When we ignore these signs, they can intensify, creating a vicious cycle that further harms our health and well-being. A clear example is a woman who is grieving after the loss of a loved one. She begins to feel constant muscle pain, especially in her back and neck, even though she hasn't engaged in physically exhausting activities. Additionally, she notices that she's sleeping poorly, waking up frequently at night, or having trouble falling asleep. These physical symptoms are direct reflections of the emotional stress caused by the pain of loss. Her body is trying to tell her something, but she still hasn't found ways to process that pain in a healthy way. Another case is that of a man working in a high-pressure corporate environment. He starts to notice that his concentration at work is decreasing, and he feels mentally exhausted by the end of each day. Moreover, he realizes he's more irritated by small frustrations, like traffic or an offhand comment from a colleague. This constant state of tension is beginning to affect not only his professional performance, but also his personal relationships. He knows something is wrong, but he still can't clearly identify the signs of stress. In analytical psychology, the concept of the shadow can help explain why stress often arises so intensely. The shadow represents the parts of ourselves that we repress or deny, often out of fear of facing difficult emotions. During moments of extreme stress, these repressed parts can emerge unexpectedly, exacerbating our sense of discomfort. For example, someone who has always avoided confronting feelings of inadequacy may begin to experience paralyzing anxiety when faced with a situation that exposes those insecurities. Now, think about this for a moment. What are the signs of stress that you've been ignoring lately? Listen with real attention. Often these signs start subtly: an occasional headache, a sleepless night, or a persistent feeling of tiredness. But if left unaddressed, they can turn into more serious problems, like chronic illnesses or emotional burnout. To illustrate this, imagine that your body is like a car. When the dashboard warning light comes on, you don't completely ignore it, right? You know something needs to be checked before the problem gets worse. Similarly, the physical and emotional symptoms of stress are warning signals that deserve your attention. Ignoring them can lead to serious consequences, while recognizing them allows you to take steps to restore balance. Managing stress doesn't mean eliminating it completely, but rather learning to deal with it in a healthy way. There are several practical tools that can be incorporated into your daily routine to help you find balance and reduce the impact of stress on your life. Let's explore some of these accessible and effective strategies. The first technique is deep breathing. Set aside just 2 minutes a day to practice diaphragmatic breathing. Inhale deeply through your nose, hold for 4 seconds, and exhale slowly through your mouth. This simple practice helps activate the parasympathetic nervous system, responsible for inducing a state of calm in the body. A man who was overwhelmed at work began practicing this technique during his breaks. He noticed that even in high-pressure moments, he could quickly calm himself and maintain focus. Another powerful tool is mindfulness, or being fully present. Mindfulness involves bringing your full attention to the present moment without judgment. You can practice it by observing details around you, like the texture of a wall, the sound of birds, or the feeling of air on your skin. A woman who was struggling emotionally after a loss, began using mindfulness while walking in the park. She realized that by focusing on the details of nature around her, her mind became less occupied with distressing thoughts and more present in the now. Reflective. Writing is also a transformative practice. Dedicate a few minutes every day to write about your worries, using phrases like, "What worries me most right now is," or "One thing I can do to improve is." This practice allows you to externalize your thoughts and emotions, making them easier to manage. A student who was overwhelmed with school deadlines began using reflective writing before bed. He discovered that it not only helped him organize his thoughts, but also reduced his anxiety by putting his fears down on paper. Now think about this. For a moment, how would your life be if you dedicated just 5 minutes a day to taking care of yourself? Listen with real attention. Often, we neglect our well-being because we think we don't have time, but these small practices can make a significant difference. Taking care of yourself isn't a luxury. It's a basic necessity to maintain your physical and emotional health. To illustrate this, imagine that your mind is like a glass of water. When the glass is full of worries and tensions, any new drop, no matter how small, can cause it to overflow. The tools we just explored function as ways to empty part of that glass, creating space for you to lead your life with more lightness and clarity. Incorporating these practices into your daily routine is an investment in your inner peace and resilience. Stress is a natural response, but when it is not managed, it can harm your physical and emotional health. Recognizing its signs and adopting practical tools is essential to finding balance. Throughout this video, we explored what stress is, how it manifests in the body and mind, and what simple strategies can be applied to face it in a healthy way. Every small step you take towards self-care is an act of courage and self-compassion. Dealing with stress isn't about eliminating life's challenges, but about learning to dance in the rain. It's important to remember that you're not alone on this journey. We all face moments of pressure and uncertainty, and seeking support, whether from friends, family, or professionals, is a sign of strength, not weakness. By integrating the practices we discussed, such as deep breathing, mindfulness, and reflective writing, you will be building a solid foundation to face future challenges with more resilience. If this video helped you, share in the comments which strategy you plan to try to manage stress. Together, we can build a community of support and growth. Listen with real attention. Your experience might be the light someone needs to move forward. Stress does not have to be your enemy. It can be a signal that something in your life needs attention.